Long, long time ago, in a public school gymnasium far, far away, there was a event known as the Scholastics Book Fair. Now, for those of you who are really young, they don't have those anymore. At least I don't think they have those anymore. Basically, it was an organization that would come to your school and they would bring books and other like small little media stuff like crayons and painting supplies and flutes and whistles and all this bunch of stuff that you could buy fairly cheap. Usually they would either send the book coupon ahead of time so that you can look through it to see what exactly they're going to have, or they would basically just show up and they would have just a ton of books, and some of them would be in a bargain bin over in the corner that you could pick up for like 50 cents. $5 went a long way when you were a child at the Scholastics Book Fair. One day at a fair, I saw a book. That book turned out to be Dune Messiah. I will admit now that I read Dune Messiah before I read the original Dune. So going into the original book, coming from Messiah, my view on Paul Atreides was completely different because the way in which I viewed him in Dune Messiah when I was reading it was that Paul was essentially a failure. That his story is the story of how we as a person, if we were to get just nigh omnipotent power and we attempted to change the world around us, how it would essentially play out. He gains the ability to see the multiple different paths. He sees way into the future the death of humanity, and he prioritizes saving humanity and doing everything possible to move certain pieces into certain positions to prevent that death by making us push ourselves to evolve beyond the comfort that we'd essentially fallen into, that he causes nothing but untold death, misery, destruction, disorder, chaos across the entire known universe. And watching his character go from this character who has like an iron grip because he essentially knows everything that he has to do, to having a mental breakdown and an emotional breakdown because he's not sure what timeline or what path he's currently living in, losing the woman that he loves, realizing that his child is going to have to live the vast majority of their life as a monster, realizing that everything that he's basically fought for, everything that he's basically done, has grown outside of his control. These people that were following him are so fervent and so rabid and so destructive that they are out there just ravaging entire worlds. And if he attempts to rein them in and pull them back in any way, shape, or form, they don't listen anymore because it's a movement that has essentially grown beyond him. I saw Paul's journey as the most realistic take on what would happen if an actual human being was to acquire his powers, or just in general, just acquire his position. Because going back to Dune, you really realize that Paul goes from a kid who has this really great dad, who's probably the only sane person throughout the entire franchise, who's trying to do good by his family, who gets betrayed, thrusting his son, that's kind of sort of sheltered, into this crazy and insane environment where he has to fight to survive while unlocking powers that make him less and less human the more he goes down that in particular path. Then he becomes emperor, and all of a sudden he's ruling the entire known universe. He has these worshippers that are willing to purify entire worlds and burn down entire great houses in his name, even though he does not command them to do so. He doesn't have the tools to run an empire. He's not a genius. Sure, he has the ability to look into the future and see the multiple paths and all of the different outcomes. But because he's seeing all of these outcomes, he's dealing with the emotional turmoil that all of those outcomes basically apply, that they present. He's seeing a future where he loses his wife. He sees a future where he's losing his wife and he's losing his kids. He sees a future where he completely loses himself and he becomes a despot. He's seeing all of these different things and he doesn't know how to basically work his way emotionally through all of these things. And he does what anyone in that situation would do. He runs, which is that he abandons it all. And it's more or less the attack on him by the people closest to him that blinds him, that makes him realize that he's just like, you know what, fuck it. I can't fix the universe. I can't save my son. I can't seem to do anything right. I've lost the woman that I love. I have made all of the wrong decisions in an attempt to make the right decision way down the line. So of course he goes to Arrakis and he becomes I forgot what he's called, but he starts going by his Fremen name. And when he's on Arrakis, he starts preaching that the decisions that he made were horrible decisions and that the war is unjust and it's wrong and we shouldn't do this and we should be working towards a better future in a different way. And he gets killed. He gets killed by the exact same fanatics that he essentially incised and he essentially created, because what he's saying is essentially heresy to them. He's created a new religion, and that new religion is monstrous. And it is a monstrous religion that consumes people, and he becomes another person that is consumed upon that fire. That is fantastic because Frank Herbert does a really good job of showing just how much and just how bad things such as monarchies are, religion is. Uh, there's a word that I'm missing, a word that I've essentially it's poof, it's gone. It's basically figureheads, like someone who's uh, a character where everyone's willing to invest their power into this person because that person in particular is fantastic at getting a point across, or fantastic at saying one liners, or fantastic at just saying things in general that you come to believe them, you come to follow them. Basically, a false prophet, which is what he is, and how easy it is for good people to be swayed by the words of others if those words adhere to what it is, or in some way, shape, or form can mold themselves into what it is that they believe. Where Paul essentially goes to the Fremen, and for the last 200 years, the Bene Gesserit have been working their way into Fremen society to essentially turn them into an army to be used by the Quidditch. Look, we're gonna fuck that term up, but Quidditch Hazarak, and wipe out all of the noble houses and essentially wipe out the emperor and bring order to essentially the entire universe by having this person, this central figure, take over literally one of the greatest fighting forces that has ever been created in secret under the nose of the Sardaukar and the emperor himself. Fantastic. I love all of the themes in Dune, but I really, really enjoy just how realistic the hero's journey is that Paul goes on, where it's a journey that begins for revenge. And then he gains the power, and then he loses himself to the power. And then he thinks he's making all the right decisions, and they are all wrong decisions. And everyone suffers, and then everyone's miserable, and a lot of people die, and a whole lot of people die, and then worlds die. And he's seeing all of these different things where worlds could have lived and worlds could have died, and people can come back, and people are gone, and his wife is alive and his wife is dead. There's even a scene that I really feel as though it was the last bit of his humanity before he decided to just abandon it all and become the preacher in the desert, where upon Chani dying during childbirth, he has the ability to bring her back and save her life. And it's not like cloning her and making a Gouda. I forgot what the fuck they're called. The They're special clones. It's basically taking her to their universe equivalent of a Bacta tank and healing her there because it hadn't been so long since she had essentially been injured. And he tells them no. And he tells them no because he's seen the pathway of the life he would have if she lives. And at the end of the path, humanity dies. And he chooses to let the woman he loves die in order to basically preserve a future possible scenario outcome that he faintly sees, that he knows there's kind of sort of a threat coming, but he has to maintain by it in order to save humanity as a whole. You compare that to some of our more recent characters that are considered heroes, but they've taken a darker path, such as, let's say, Eren Yeager, where instead of Eren taking the Titans and then just wiping out the entire cycle and then leaving the world to figure it out, he chose the evil path, wiping out the vast majority of the world to make it so that his friends and their kids and their grandkids could live in a world of quasi peace. But then thousands of years down the line, that peace is gone. And the cycle turns all over again, and you see the gigantic tree, and you know that someone new is going to be the new Ymir, and a whole new cycle of Titans is about to be born again. Love it. Like, I absolutely love the fucking parallels. Like, I think he did a absolutely fantastic job. Dune is just, I love that so many people are getting into the books now, and I really can't wait to see how they're going to adapt Dune Messiah, because it's super easy to fuck this up, but if you get it right, this will go down as probably the best sci-fi trilogy ever. But let me know what you guys think. Comment down below, and I will catch you in the next one.